And we're live. Welcome, everybody, and welcome to anyone that is joining us for the first time. We have a special guest with us today. We have Diana Salguero de la Cruz. She is joining us from Abu Dhabi, and she's originally from Ecuador in South America and is the founder of the Montessori Network in the Middle East, which is an online volunteer-based nonprofit which has won not one, but two prestigious awards from Gulf Media since its establishment in 2021. She is also a psychologist and a Montessori enthusiast and a homeschooling mum to her 4-year-old daughter, Farah. Diana, welcome. It is such a pleasure to have you with us today.
It's a thrill for me to be here. Hi, Lucy. Thank you very much. Hi, Amanda. It's lovely to see you again.
Oh, yeah, it's so lovely to have our very first guest coming from South America like me. Oh my days, Diana. Even though we don't speak the same language, you speak Spanish, I speak Portuguese, it feels really, really close to home. So I'm thrilled to have you here. It's really nice, and I hope you enjoy our little chat. So shall we start firing away?
Yeah.
Questions. Okay, so Diana, how did you discover Montessori? Just tell us all about it.
After my daughter's birth, I actually had a severe postpartum depression, and I found myself just wanting to look inwards. I was not going out. It's just a very specific state of mind, and in that pursuit of balance and less outer noise and in general input, that's where I found myself reading, and I was reading a lot. And for the first probably 5 to 6 months, I dedicated my time to reading. And I read a lot on different topics, but I fell in love with the Montessori approach. I fell in love with the principles of respecting the child, of respecting the individual's pace, meet the person where they are, preparing the environment, setting up the child and individual for success. It was a different world. It was definitely a different world than what I learned. While being a student. And in psychology, there's also different views, different schools, and we at some point Montessori comes to the discussion, but not really in depth. But so I found myself very connected to the philosophy itself. And it was not until my daughter was around 7 months of age when I started to prepare the environment.
Wow, that's so interesting. And it's a fun fact is that you actually had your baby during the pandemic, didn't you?
Yes.
So I'm sure that really made things a lot worse. Not having the proximity with family and friends, having to be isolated in your own family bubble. I'm sure that
it did. We could not travel. People. I mean, everyone who experienced a birth during the pandemic, especially during that 2020, the year where we
the real lockdown.
Yes, it was very challenging, and that's specifically when I found the need to connect to other moms and to start the discussion around Montessori, and we started as a very small club. It was a club for Abu Dhabi moms. So it was very few of us, and it was a very gentle, friendly discussion, not so deep, not so elaborated. It was just us starting to try and find what is it that Montessori is about in a way. And that was a year. That was the year when we started. There were a few moms along with me. There's one of them specifically that I would like to mention. She is Erica Mills, and she was one of the first moms who belonged to that club. And she was the one who was very motivating into let's become a broader network, because moms from other Emirates in the UAE, from other countries across the Middle East, were contacting us to say, well, can I find something like this where I live, or can I belong? Can I be part? And that's how we open borders, so to speak.
Amazing.
Yeah, wow.
And yeah, that's such a great story. And is that Erica that I worked with?
Erica, there are two Erica Badu and Erica Mills. Both of them are part of the admin team of the network. They're both two passionate moms who like to give their time back to the community.
Oh, amazing, amazing. And so you've talked about a little bit about sort of what, how it all began, this Montessori network in the Middle East. And I know it used to be Montessori women in the Middle East, didn't it? And you were saying how you've now opened it up to dads and, caregivers, male caregivers, which is fantastic. Right. And how's that going?
Well, it's it's pretty exciting. We started noticing that more male caregivers wanted to also learn and share their own experiences. In the Middle East, we can observe a trend that comes from naturally decades before, where it is mostly the women who are running the family. And I would say in many parts of the world. And so, but we also had some male caregivers wanting to take part. And so we started to evaluate how can we just include them in everything that we were doing. And that started maybe 5 months ago, before the summer. We changed our branding so that we can be also a little more welcoming in every sense to male caregivers. And in the last workshop that we had a few dozens of male caregivers joining in, and that was awesome. That is really beautiful. It's a beautiful perspective. Naturally, it's the perspective that women will not have. So it's really exciting. I'm just hoping that we can continue to include more and more, and just make it completely natural for everyone to take part in the workshops, in our book club.
Amazing. So you have Montessori, you have families and caregivers, and you were mentioning as well lots of nannies as well.
We do. Our mission started as wanting to share information, quality information, for everyone, not necessarily parents or not exclusively educators, but everyone who is in care of a child. That is the most children. Our children are the future. So we made it a mission to try and reach to everyone. And so we started including, from the beginning, nannies, any caregiver was just very welcome.
Yeah. That's gorgeous, because it does take a village, doesn't it, to raise a child?
And it does, and you have to look for it.
Yes, because obviously, and it also comes from professional experience here, from myself and Amanda as well. We have been part of so many children's families, so many children's lives, and you can definitely see that it's and it's us trying to support parents in any possible way, and supporting educators as well, and nannies. It's such a beautiful mission that you're on, Diana. This is amazing.
Yeah.
And obviously, because you come from Ecuador and then now you moved to the Middle East. It's been how many years has it been since you've been living?
I've been living here for 8 years.
Wow. Oh, that's really cool. And then, do you think that the Montessori approach, how do you think that this Montessori approach aligns with the Middle Eastern culture and values, or does it clash in any way? How does that work?
That's such a beautiful topic to discuss. I've been living here for 8 years. You will find here families, generations that have been living here. And that means decades and decades. And it is so beautiful to see that, especially Arab families, they keep the values of family. And in Montessori, we know that the core is the family, and the child is it's another active member of the family. We do not leave the child out in a different room space, or the child is part of our daily life. And that is so beautiful to see how families put a lot of effort in keeping and carrying on those traditions. So you will find full generations here living that they don't necessarily spread out across the city, but they will live most probably in the same areas.
Oh, that's lovely. Wow.
And that is something really beautiful to see, not only in the middle, across the Middle East, but also in families coming from Southeast Asia, India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, which are the most numerous populations here in the UAE. And it really reminds me how also I grew up. I bet we all probably had similar experiences as children. Our families, I remember aunties, uncle, everyone living more or less in the same space, in the same neighborhoods. And you would grow up knowing your mom, of course, but knowing also that your aunties were kind of moms as well.
Yeah.
And that you could just reach out to those trusted adults because all of them are raising you.
That's gorgeous.
And I think
wow,
it's beautiful. And when you read the books and the biography of Dr. Maria Montessori, you understand how many of those cultural values are part of her writings. And she lived in India, right? She lived for 7 years or so. So you can really see those strong cultural values being part of the philosophy, and it just makes sense. So you will see children just doing practical life, not as, they don't really have to think of, oh, how do we do practical life? It's just part of it. They wake up and they go sit down in the kitchen, and you will find kids just peeling, chopping. It's something that I really appreciate.
Yeah.
It comes very naturally, isn't it? It's like, it's not about setting up a tray. Oh, like let's do pouring, and then you have like 2 small jugs, and then you have the little mat. No, it's like pouring happens naturally because you're going to be, like helping yourself to some milk or to some juice, and naturally you learn how to pour things, isn't it? So it's something very practical, and it's beautiful to hear that from you, Diana, that you grew up like in a family that everyone was somewhat living in the same area as you. When I was growing up, I actually didn't have a lot of family around me. And I've always found that so special. So like when I moved to São Paulo, I was born in a small town. Then I moved to São Paulo when I was 5, and there's so many buildings in São Paulo, right? And I loved to see families living in the same building but in different apartments. So it's like they still have their privacy, they still have their like their own lives. But if they needed any help, if they wanted just like a little bit of connection, if they just wanted to sit down for like a cup of tea or coffee, they could just easily do it. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
It's really beautiful to see. In my building, just as a similar beautiful fact, we constantly bump into neighbors whom we know they just jump from floor to floor, and you can see them going up with their little cup of the beverage that they drink, and the little biscuits you see, and you can smell fresh out of the oven, and they just keep, and you bump into these kind of dynamics and situations every single day. And that reminds me of trying to focus. You might not have your family around, but you need, as you were saying, Lucy, you need your village.
Yes,
you need a virtual one, an in-person one, but you need your village.
Yeah, you always have your support network, don't you? So like one way or another, it's just beautiful. Wow, I love it.
Yeah, that's so cool. I mean, I didn't actually grow up with any aunties or uncles, and both my parents were single children. So it's interesting. And now I'm an auntie to 6. And it's the first time I sort of thinking, oh, it would have been so cool to have like an auntie or uncle, as you say, because they're not your mum or dad, but it's like, it's a really special relationship. So that's really
absolutely. And you will find a lot of countries across the Middle East and Southeast Asian countries as well. They are large families. And there are many reasons for that. Some of them may not be as joyful as we would wish, but the end game is large families. So this just keeps generation after generation the same mindset of continuing the values.
Yeah,
And
love
Diana, do
that.
you think that this, so like, because you were talking big families, and then right off the bat, I thought my dad is one of 8, my mom is one of 4, and maybe is this like a South American thing, you reckon, as well? Because you come from South America. Is it normal for you to see big families in Ecuador as well?
I think our countries in South America, Latin America, you will see that in Mexico as well. The last generations, they used to have more children. My mom is one of 12. My
Wow.
my dad is one of 8, 6 as well. So yes, I think that reminds me of my childhood. Many
Yes.
of how the families are nowadays here that you will find is how we used to be before. And keeping those values very tight
Yeah.
to us is how we used to be in Latin American as well. And things are changing. As I was saying, there are families here that have been here for decades, 20, 30, 40 decades. And things might be shifting a little bit. And that is part, the UAE is just such a big melting pot of culture. So at some point you will find as well that maybe some of the values start to get a little blurry. The language as well, maybe not Arabic as just such a strong language anymore. Maybe English is there.
Yes.
But you can still see some beautiful, very Montessori, very there.
So talking of values, Diana, what would you say it is about the Montessori approach that resonated most for you with your parenting? What were the aspects of Montessori that you sort of really sort of honed in on, and when bringing up your daughter?
I think meeting my child where she is. I was having a very interesting conversation with my very good friend this morning, and we were talking. Well, she was sharing with me some learnings that she had during a spiritual retreat, and the topic was how we become so dependent on the clock, the physical clock, the time. And we start to think in terms of, oh, it's 6, we have to have dinner, supper. It's 5 or it's 11, we need to, etc. Whereas if we follow our natural rhythms, as past cultures would, then it would be just a natural thing for you to understand your body. Oh, I'm getting hungry, I'm getting sleepy, etc. So I think that meet your child where they are is such a huge, it resonates with me a lot, but it's also a constant lesson. It is not easy. Especially as you were mentioning, Lucy, in Latin America, we are used to, let me tell you how it will go.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you tell me, Diana.
And so such a big lesson challenge, and it's a constant learning for me to, all right, hold your horses. Let's see where your child is. Yeah. And especially when you homeschool, you see the Montessori classroom, okay, you see the curriculum, and then you get overwhelmed with, oh, I have to do this material and the other material, and then you have 20,000 materials, and that might be a little bit overwhelming. So this is a constant daily reminder. I will meet my child where they are, where she is, and I will follow her rhythm. I will follow the child.
It's liberating,
so simple, yet complex. It is. And that alone, positive discipline, which was also a beautiful, huge discovery for me during pregnancy, is just such a natural match, Montessori and positive discipline.
How can they not go together, right? It's like,
it's harmony, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. How do I foster intrinsic motivation in my child?
Yeah.
How do I stop thinking of rewards, punishment? How do I stop thinking of that? How do I make my family experience as best as possible, as I consider it to be, correct, right? Yeah. But yes, it's really amazing.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. So yeah, so like so what do you think that led you to homeschool your daughter using the Montessori approach? Was it because maybe like you didn't find anything out there that was offering what you wanted to offer her?
There are countries across the Middle East, like Lebanon, where Egypt as well, you will find a lot of offering in terms of schools. But in the UAE, the homeschooling community is quite big. there are a few women, especially that have created networks for a couple of decades already. Now, it is never as simple, and the pressure is there on how do we school our children, how do we teach our children, do we do it as our parents did with us. And that was a big decision for me. You will find that in the UAE, and especially those countries across the Middle East where the expatriate population is high, you will find that many, I will not say most, but many families have one income, and then you have another parent who will be able to not become an income to the family. And yet the schooling percentage is really high, and it starts usually around a year of age of the child. And that was one big decision that we had to make at a family level. Do we want to follow this path? And my personal experience while being a student was that of pressure. I remember a lot of pressure. And although my parents did the best to follow my interest, that became a lot for me to handle. And I remember a lot of stress. So I was in a German school, and the standards were pretty high, and I was doing also music, which I really adored. But again, all of that adds up to the, and so I really wanted to offer my child the chance to experience freedom, to experience support and guidance from me in following her interests without setting deadlines and timelines and objectives and etc. And the Montessori approach is just so wonderful for that. And there are, thankfully, I noticed that AIM has a lot of offering for parents as well. You both ladies are doing a lot of work with parents, and that is something really wonderful that I see that has been happening. Because I believe that once the parent, the main caregiver, decides to homeschool, we immediately need more support. We need to understand how to organize, especially Montessori, because it can be overwhelming to follow the curriculum, the materials. Do we have to be a classroom when we homeschool in with the Montessori pedagogy? The answer will be no, but that takes time to learn. So having support by Montessori professionals paired also with positive discipline, like you both, is really, for me, it's what parents need the most when they decide to, especially to homeschool. I would say not exclusively, but it's something really valuable.
Absolutely. And I think the principles of positive discipline just blend so well, especially if you are homeschooling, because at the end of the day, children are going to act out, and they're children, and just having those tools in your back pocket that align so beautifully with Montessori's idea of independence and resilience, and unleashing our children's potential is it works so well.
I love the fact that you said that it felt that was way too much pressure in your school life, and that you didn't want to give this to your child. And it's funny because when you said that, I was like, one of the reasons why I gave up teaching was because of all this pressure that I was almost like forced to bring to my pupils as well, because you have like this massive curriculum, and you have all of these activities that you need to do with them. And then you're like, it is a bit too much, people. Let's just focus on the basics. Let's just focus on their social emotional development, life skills, learning about the routines. And then we can think about, like activities. And if the child doesn't want to do it, they don't want to do it. We're not going to force them into doing it, or even because sometimes it's like, well, just somewhat, and just it counts, right? Because parents want to see something. But if we kind of like start changing the culture that, the child's journey in that school is not reflected on the amount of paperwork that you need to give to parents, on the amount of, these are all the colorings, all the artwork, these, you see that there's so much growth without that pressure, right? Without trying to fill their time
Absolutely.
constantly with activities, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just
Absolutely.
child. Yeah, so that is liberating, isn't it?
Couldn't
Like,
agree more. It is. It is. It's a beautiful adjective that you're using. It's liberating, not
yeah.
only for the child, but for us
For
as
us.
caregivers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. So yeah, it's a win-win situation, isn't it?
It
Win-win
is
situation.
absolutely.
That's really cool.
So Diana, would you have you got any sort of top tips for families that might want to incorporate Montessori at home, or anyone that might want to incorporate Montessori at home?
I would say to prepare ourselves first, even before we jump with all our motivation and wishes to prepare the environment, which is beautiful. As a caregiver, it's really beautiful to set up a space for our children, but even before that, I would say that it is so crucial to try and first learn as much as we can. The environment will come. It will happen. And naturally, not even without us thinking too much or calculating or buying everything we see on the internet, but learning the principles, the Montessori principles, and understand how is it a philosophy, because we see beautiful spaces on the internet, and it really has become a bit of a concern for us to oh my goodness, I don't have that, I need that, when it might not necessarily be the case that we need. But without us understanding the why of everything, and I'm not even saying go and read the books of Dr. Maria Montessori. They might be not everyone's cup of tea, so to speak, but start reading.
Quite dense, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
There are a few authors who write on Montessori. I remember myself, I started with Simone's
Simone Davis.
Simone Davis's book.
Yeah,
I think it's so popular.
So
exactly that one.
It's lovely.
It's very accessible. It's a great place to start. And then along the way came Mariana Bisonnet's, I love her work, Mariana Bisonnet's book, Babies Become Toddlers. Unbelievably useful. So we can start. There are places to start. And that is a lot that gives maybe a little more peace when one is reading and feeling empowered with, all right, I know my ABC probably. And this is I would say the only aspect that as our kids grow, and at some point we will feel that we might be a little lost and the stage changed again. What happens? This was working, now it's not. And then when we go back to the basics, then we find ourselves reading again.
Yeah.
I think that would be my top tip.
Yeah. And I love it
so far.
Reading again, because every time you read something again, because you are at a different stage in your life, you have gone through so many other things that maybe you haven't been through them when you were reading the book the first time. So to me, it always feels fresh. Whenever I open a book that I know I've already read back to back, I read it again and I go like, okay, I'm reading this like with a completely different perspective. It's like, I didn't see that the other time, right? So it's just it's amazing. Like when it's what you said, go back to the basics, go back to, like people.
Those principles.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Not necessarily will Dr. Maria Montessori's original books be the best one, right? They may not. Yeah, they may not be the best option. So like I love all the Simone Davis books, like the Montessori trilogy, the Montessori baby, the Montessori toddler, the Montessori child, because I think it's such a beautiful blend of Montessori and positive discipline as well, right? Because she's also positive discipline certified, and the way that she explains it is just so easy. And I remember you saying that, like one thing that you feel that parents, educators, and caregivers really need is simple, actionable, practical tools, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, and I think
I would say so. I would say so. And I would just like to mention that once, I think another big thing that has worked for me is that whenever we find that we are pushing too much on the child or the environment or anything around us, is to look back on the inside. And we as caregivers, and this comes from a very also my instruction as a psychologist, is there are a lot of aspects that we as adults need to review, need to heal. There's just a lot. The generations have changed a lot. Our children need different. Our families need a different specific approach, so to speak. So to never be afraid of asking for help, looking for the help you need, is something that is crucial for everyone. It has been for me, and I will continue to just firmly believe in that. We as adults need support, either a friend, a husband, a wife, anyone around us, but also inside us. That could be a therapist. It could be someone who can really, a third party who can really help us navigate from a place of compassion, our own limitations as adults.
That's gorgeous.
So beautiful, Diana. And I think we are 31 minutes in, so I think that is just such a lovely place to end our chat. Unless, Lucy, you've got anything else you'd like to ask?
Diana, I absolutely loved having you here as our very first guest. Thank you so much. It was such an honor. I would love to see you again.
Sure thing. Let's meet again.
For a second time, definitely.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me.
It's absolutely such an honor.
That was lovely.
Thank you so much
for your time.
Pleasure. See you soon, Diana.
Thank you. See you
Bye.
soon.
Bye, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.